So let's talk about how the Scarlet Witch was always the villain. Now that we're all watching the WandaVision spinoff or sequel series, Agatha All Along, there's been a resurgence in the speculation that Wanda's still alive, which means that now the conversations are coming back up about Wanda's arc and about Multiverse of Madness and how people feel like her arc or her character was mishandled. There's a lot of sentiment that her turning into a villain came out of nowhere or wasn't really a natural progression of her character, or when we found out that the writers of Multiverse of Madness hadn't watched WandaVision, a lot of people felt like that inherently meant that the two didn't connect properly. I strongly disagree, especially because I think that Wanda had one of the best arcs in the MCU. Yeah, I said it. So let's talk about how the Scarlet Witch was always the villain. I think that because Wanda is so sympathetic in Captain America Civil War and Infinity War that we forget how we met this woman. Remember, she was introduced to us as an actual villain in Avengers Age of Ultron.
The twins were subsequently radicalized, volunteering at Hydra.
So when we meet her, she's teamed up with a homicidal robot, and she's fine with that because it's going to help her attain her goal. So when did she turn good? Did she have some sort of moral awakening? No, she realized that the robot she was working for is worse than the man she hated and switched sides. But there was never really any indication or any explicit dictation that she had changed her belief system or was remorseful at all. She was a villain that teamed up with heroes to fight a bigger villain. And we've seen heroes and villains team up to fight a bigger threat all the time. It doesn't make the villains not villains anymore. But she was a full-fledged Avenger. She was saving the world. Realistically, what else was she going to do? She had no home, her brother had died, and they offered her a job and somewhere to stay. At least at this point, Wanda is not a monster. She has a general value for human life, and her original motivation was protecting the small, weak people that powerful people like Tony Stark would often forget and abuse and use and would feel the brunt of his negligence. So the idea of saving people from oppressiveness or just saving vulnerable people is something that's in line with who she is. She's not a monster, but it doesn't also make her somehow a good person. Because also remember, Killmonger and John Walker were both soldiers. So having a heroic job doesn't make you a hero inside. Also, the Avengers aren't full of members who are pure souls like the Justice League are. Half their roster are people who weren't great and then turned their life around. So them adding her to the ranks isn't really any indication of her virtue or her goodness. What Wanda became in Multiverse of Madness shouldn't have been surprising. Every time she deals with loss, it's followed by rage. When Quicksilver was killed, she didn't just kill Ultron, she ripped out his heart. A little over the top, but she's grieving. And when Vision died, Wanda was either about to rip Thanos apart or crush him into a ball, but we see now the rage is starting to escalate, so let's pay attention to that. And when she realized that the government was desecrating Vision's body and doing experiments on him, she enslaved an entire town and rebuffed and resisted any and every attempt to free them. And when she lost her children, she unleashed monsters into the world and went on a murder spree that crossed over dimensions. So we can see a very steep increase in her intensity until it reached a tipping point. So if you take away her actually being on the Avengers and just look at her as a character, and if Multiverse of Madness was the first time we saw her and everything that she's been through was given to us in like flashbacks or through dialogue, then she would sit as a character right over there in between Thanos and Killmonger, right at the villains table. She would fit right in. And honestly, she's one of the better MCU villains because they took 7 years, 5 movies, and a TV show to develop her arc. So yes, I say that Wanda is a villain and never really stopped being a villain. But the most important thing is what you think. Let me know, do you agree with me? Or do you think that how they handled Wanda's character at the end was wrong? It was mishandled. Let me know and we can talk about it. The best part of being in the fandom is the discussion and the debate, and we can go back and forth. So let me know. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you guys next time.